So, while I am incredibly heartened by the number of people who subscribe to me who seem to share the opinion that I have that segregation of the population by race is an abhorrent idea, I do sort of wonder how many people have really given the matter an awful lot of thought as to just why they think that's a bad idea. Now, I've had the chance to marshal my thoughts on the matter a little, and now that I've got a little bit past the whole gag effect that saying the words segregated schools has, here's what I've come up with as the reasons why I think it's such an awful idea. It has to do with my belief that through cultural diversity, all of a society is enriched to a greater extent than we are inconvenienced by living with people who we don't happen to share too much in common with. I liken this to the movie The Odd Couple. Two totally dissimilar people who, by all accounts, actually do hate each other, and nearly come to blows over it on many occasions, nevertheless are both enhanced as people simply because they must tolerate each other's presence, for purely socioeconomic reasons. They each have skills or traits that the other requires, whether or not the other one wants to admit it or not, and seeing as how the movie starts with Jack Lemmon attempting, however comedically, to commit suicide, I think this argument is pretty self-evident. Both characters are basically horrible people individually, unworthy of much sympathy, which is why it's a comedy, but they both gain more from their dysfunctional relationship than they lose. This is just like living in a multicultural society. The gains far exceed the problems that will ultimately arise. Now, it's all very well and good for me to just say something like that and end the video, but that wouldn't be very rational of me, would it? I'm quite sure there's plenty of people out there who would just say, well, Professor Unwardil says so, so therefore it must be true! Yay, multiculturalism! And then never give it a second thought. No, The Odd Couple is simply a very nice metaphor. A nice lie to children. Thank you, Terry Pratchett, and, well, generally the science of Discworld for that term. Go and read it. It's a great read. Now, for more rational explanation on this view, however, I'm going to have to turn to one of the very well-accepted scientific theory, that of evolution, and a fairly newcomer to the whole scientific scene, but very recognizable, particularly among the abridging community, the meme theory. Now, first of all, evolution observes how the key to survival isn't necessarily the strength or intelligence, flight, speed, any particular trait that an animal has, but it's having the right combination of stuff to survive in whatever environment you're in. Animals with very finicky diets don't tend to survive for very long, for instance, especially when their only food source gets wiped out. You know, pandas, for instance, are only still on this planet because we happen to think they're cute. If they didn't look cuddly in zoos, they'd probably all be dead right now. Tragic, but also probably true. This also brings up another good strategy for survival, which is symbiosis. Multiple species all tacitly agreeing to help each other out. Banana plants, for instance, rely entirely on animals to plant their seeds for them. Us, basically. If their fruit wasn't eaten and then spread around like that, they wouldn't be able to propagate themselves. Bees and flowering plants, similar symbiotic, and generally, the bigger this network of symbiosis is, the more stable the ecosystem will be. Not that it's beyond being upset, but generally, the whole will survive. Now, the system by which evolution works is called genetics, and DNA being passed on to the next generation and all of that. Look it up if you care. It is a very interesting subject, but not my point here. My point is that human thoughts and ideas follow very similar tendencies as genes and genetics do. This is what we call memes, which are ideas which get propagated through education and language and communication, and in fact, they're metaphorical survival. I mean, memes aren't alive, but they survive by being passed on in our brains. In the same way that your genes don't actually care about you, because they're not intelligent, the ideas in your head don't care about you either, and many of our strongly held beliefs are incredibly old. Just like the concept that murder is wrong, for instance. Very, very widely held belief around the world. So common that no surviving culture today hasn't managed to come up with it. Yes, the smart ones among you are going to be able to see where I'm going with this. But for everyone else, or just the less intelligent, I'll clue you in. Every culture on the planet right now carries with it a set of memes, just like an organism gets its genes from its parents, and they from theirs, all the way back to the primordial ooze. Every culture is the result of that culture's memes being passed on and being successful. Now, what happens to organisms that overspecialize again? They tend to get wiped out when something comes along and upsets the balance of their environment. It happens with alarming frequency, in fact. So then, what is likely to happen to societies who overspecialize their cultures? Nothing for a while. Then perhaps someone comes along and invents something that, for whatever reason, is incompatible with those cultures' values. This thing proves to be a huge benefit for the culture that adopts it, and tacitly a huge detriment to those that don't. Take something like the discovery of iron. How many Bronze Age cultures are still around today that refuse to adopt iron? None. They all died out because their weapons sucked, and those with the iron ones went right through their armor like it wasn't there. So, the key to survival in nature is symbiosis. I say the key. There's many keys to survival, but one very, very good thing seems to be symbiosis. So, there. Surely then, something similar is going to be at least beneficial in the mimetic sense as well. Different cultures all coexisting and strengthening each other through both their rivalry and their cooperation. But there's an even greater benefit, and it has to do with evolution of mimetics. Just like a change in environment will favor different genes causing new species to emerge, so too will a change in the cultural environment, or the zeitgeist, if you will, cause mimetic mutation. This is inevitable, and it happens all the time. For instance, how many Celtic cultures still practice animal sacrifice, or how many Catholics still burn witches? No one. Well, okay, crazy people, maybe. But that's the thing about mimetics. Just like genetics, you are simply the product of your genes. Mimetics are the product of the memes that take... or cultures are the product of their memes. Memes, however, have this neat little trick. They can be exchanged freely between any two people who are able to communicate with each other, and therein lies the true strength of a multicultural society. Because everybody brings different ideas to the table, different memes, from different cultures, and through communications of these ideas, just as science moves the understanding of mankind forward, multiculturalism can be a fantastic device for moving the morality of mankind forward towards a future that, while never perfect, could make every culture on Earth today seem as barbaric as, well, barbarians do to us now. That's the dream. That's the multicultural dream. And while admittedly idealistic, evolution and meme theory do suggest that it isn't beyond the realm of possibility. I, for one, think this is something worth pursuing, which is why I get incredibly disgusted when other people in my country who will wave the flag of multiculturalism when it suits them, go to such lengths to destroy it at every opportunity.